So one of my favourite tips is to always have spares and never stop sowing. And today, it's the 14th of December, I think, and I'm not sowing today, but I'm picking out these lettuce and tatsoi that I've got here. And these were sown 8 days ago. And I've got some Navara lettuce, which is probably my favourite lettuce at all times of year apart from midwinter, and Riccia, which is a great lollo lettuce, crispy one, and some tatsoi. And I've got a few Grenoble reds there, not very many, because I've got a lot of Grenoble red in the ground. And so I'm just going to prick these out. And even though, it's the 14th of December, I don't mind, because it's amazing how well seedlings do even at this time of year. And they do need to be grown under grow lights this time of year, but I really like grow lights, so I'm really happy to be making use of them, because otherwise they would just be standing idle at this time of year. And by just taking opportunities like this, because these won't be these grow lights won't be used for kind of main crop sowings until February time. It just means get maximum utilisation out of them, because they're a fairly expensive thing. These tatsoi are a little bit leggy, but it's amazing how rough you can be with seedlings, and obviously I'm being incredibly rough with these because I want to get these really long stems kind of covered up, but I can just push them in with my finger, and they're perfectly happy. I've never had one fail, which is kind of amazing, because a lot of people talk about avoiding damaging the stems, and just how fragile little seedlings are and only hold them by the leaves and all of that sort of thing. But I just push them in, no problem at all. So tatsoi is nice. I like it in salads, and so right now my focus is on growing lots of great salads for spring. And so little tatsoi leaves are great for that, although they will probably go to seed on me. They won't last forever, but that's fine. Just keep sowing. Always have spares, and then as soon as they go to seed, just pop something else in. I often get 4 or 5 different crops out of a bed each year, and that's something that isn't really possible without grow lights. But you could get 3 crops a year probably without grow lights, but you could just get so much more with them. And it just allows you to tune what you grow to the seasons, so you're kind of not stuck with ground being occupied by, for example, vast amounts of spinach in spring. You can have had cleared all your surplus spinach beds and have them replanted with something like, say, turnips, for example. Or you could, like I often do, get nice early cauliflowers and calabrese and things like that in the beds that I've been using for spinach in midwinter. So these particular tatsoi are almost certainly going to be replacing beds that currently have got salad onions in them. And obviously I'm eating salad onions quite a rate, oh, not just me, we are eating salad onions at the moment at quite a rate. We are getting through about, how would I say it, probably 10, maybe more actually, at least 10 a day, and so we need 70 a week, and that's a lot of salad onions. You know, you really plough through them, and so we clear a lot of space over, you know, the winter months. We need to keep replenishing that space. So that's the tatsoi done, looking quite nice. And now I'm on to the lettuce. And this lettuce, some of it will be to replace lettuces that are growing under grow lights right now for harvest in late December, and some of it will be to go into beds for a harvest in spring. And I'm not quite sure where the lettuce is going to end up going. I think it'll probably end up going into the polytunnel to replace something that I've harvested over winter. And exactly what, I don't know, because I don't tend to plan to that level of detail all the time. I tend to just make sure that I've got spare plants ready to go, and then kind of assess every week which beds are earning their keep, and then kind of take the bed that's not earning its keep, you know, the least productive bed, and kind of plan to get that replaced, you know, in 1 or 2 weeks' time. And that's kind of how I do my planning. So just working a few weeks ahead. So for example, as soon as I see, as I have right now, that my August planted tatsoi and red pak choi is starting to go to seed, so I know that those beds are going to be available pretty soon, and either I'll plant lettuce or baby leaf spinach in those for salads, and peas at the back. And yeah, but you're never quite sure, you know, it's just because we had a very mild autumn, so those Asian greens went to seed just, you know, a little bit earlier. Normally they go to seed in sort of January, early February time. This year they just happened to have gone to seed in December. We're still harvesting them, they're still fine, but they won't put much energy now into leaf growth. All the energy will be directed into growing their flowers, and so they won't earn their keep because they won't be replenishing the leaves that we're harvesting off them. So I'll just do one last kind of big harvest off them in January, and by then these little lettuces will all be ready. So I mentioned that I probably get, in a lot of my beds, you know, 4 or more harvests out of each bed, but that kind of underestimates it really in a way, because in a lot of beds I've also got an interplant, and that So that means I'm probably getting 6 harvests out of a bed, because I only really count something as an interplant if it's not reducing, or if the net yield is greater than planting things individually. So I tend to think of it as companion planting if you're planting 2 things together where the yield is no different than if you planted them apart, but where you're planting them together as companions because there's some beneficial effect, like one plant deters insects from another plant. So I tend to think of that as companion planting. Interplanting, I tend to think of as where I'm planting 2 things together that don't interfere with each other, or where the interference effect between the 2 things is marginal. So maybe it's a reduction in yield of 20% from each crop, but overall I'm getting twice the yield, so I'm getting a much bigger crop than I would have got had I planted them separately. So something like lettuce interplanted with salad onions is a great example, where really I notice no reduction in the yield from the lettuce, and I notice no reduction in the yield from the salad onions. So it's a great interplant, and I've had loads of those, and if you look in my individual growing guides for each type of plant that we grow, you will see there's a section with recommended interplants. I actually don't find very many companion plants that are worth bothering with, so I don't talk about that very much, although there's lots of other gardening books that seem to think it's an amazing technique, but not for me. And then I also do a lot of relay planting, where you plant 2 things in the bed that would interfere with each other were they allowed to spend the whole of their lives in the bed together, but they don't. And an example of that would be in a spinach bed, for example. In March I might start planting parsnips and harvest every other spinach plant and plant a parsnip in between, and the spinach would massively overpower the baby parsnip seedlings, so I wouldn't want them to spend all the time together, but I'd just progressively harvest the spinach and gradually make space for the parsnips as they start to germinate. And then in between the parsnips, once all the spinach is harvested, I'll plant salad onions or bulbin onions, and they won't interfere with each other until the parsnips are really big and kind of overpowering the onions, but that doesn't tend to happen until about July time, by which time the onions are almost finished growing. So that works out quite well. And if you're interested anyway in more information on interplanting, relay planting, successional planting and all of those sorts of things, companion planting not so much in my case, you can look in the advanced growing techniques section of my ebook, and also in all of the individual growing guides that go into details for each type of plant. And I love it. I think it's one of the best things to invest your time in when it comes to gardening, much more important than what fertilizer to use or whether you dig or no dig or anything like that. So there's all my little lettuces. Ready for January. My name's Steve, this is the Seaside Kitchen Garden and Allotment channel, and I'll see you soon.